Before we wrap up here on BetMGMU, we'll take a look at the coaching carousel, the transfer portal. They are already buzzing, no pun intended, in the case of Coach Williams, who is headed from the Aggies to the Terps. But a lot of other moves have already been made. We'll get into them. And an early look at next season already here on BetMGMU alongside John Martin and RJ Choppy. I'm Chris Mack. We are live coast to coast on the BetMGM network every Friday night and Saturday morning. That will continue. We'll take our usual late spring, summer hiatus and be back just in time for college football in the fall, hopefully, unless we said something in the first segment or we say something between now and the end of the show that leads them to not welcome us back. Not that we would ever do something like that. I mean, just some guys talking ball, right?
We're above board.
We're just
totally
talking. We're just talking.
Just guys talking ball. That's all. But take us with you inside your Odyssey app, AUDACY. Most outstanding player odds before we wrap up as well. But the Final Four is officially set. San Antonio, Saturday night, 6:09 Eastern, 5:09 Central. The SEC matchup is Florida against Auburn. Gators are laying 2.5. Money line minus 150. Auburn money line plus 125. So you're telling me that you expect, I don't know, I'm not addressing either one of you two. I guess I'm talking to the books. You expect Florida to finally put together a full 40-minute game, because I would be worried given the fact that I still don't think we've seen one from them yet, John, in this tournament, a full 40-minute effort.
No, we haven't. I guess, Maryland would be the closest thing we've seen because they did end up creating margin, although that was a nip-tuck game for the first, 20 minutes mostly. So, yeah, I mean, when this is going to shock you guys. The numbers on both of these games are right. Florida Auburn's number is right, and Houston Duke's number is right. I mean, I just don't, the only thing that I think you are wondering about is Jani Broome. I mean, he did come back and finish against Michigan State, but we all saw the way he rebounded that one rebound with a limp right arm, basically, or what, left arm. I don't remember which one it was, but a limp arm. So, in 5 days time, 6 days time, is he going to be? I mean, I think everybody at this point in the season is probably dealing with something, but he's been banged up all year long, and that was a weird, nasty fall. And obviously, Florida's bigs they're active. They're coming at you, man. And there's 4 of them. Hand-Lockton, Howe off the bench, Chinyalu, and Condon. So if he's not really ready to go and he's just kind of gutting it out for the team, I think Florida could create some margin here. But look, Auburn was the SEC champs, fellas. I know we remember the slide after they clinched that. They kind of let their foot off the gas, but they are the SEC regular season champs and the best league in the country, and they also owe Florida for what they did to them in Auburn in the jungle. So I don't have anything on this one. I'll wait to see if there's an update on Broome, but if you force me to pick a side here, I would probably go Florida just because of Broome's uncertainty.
Look, I understand that Auburn owes Florida one, but sometimes styles make fights, and I mean, this is a Florida team that put up 90 points on the road against Auburn. That just doesn't, that's a big number, man. That's a big 90 points in a college basketball game. That's a big number. I know it's more commonplace than it may be used to. Bama seems to do it every night until they play Duke. But 90 points in a college basketball game is a lot. I think Florida is the pick here at 2.5. I think they're the pick. They're the pick at 5.5. I really like Florida this game. Auburn has not played. I know they kind of took their foot off the gas. The problem is once you take your foot off the gas, you never, unless you're like a veteran, you got Kobe Bryant on your team in his 30s, you don't just put it back on. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't happen like that. You kind of lose something, and I think they've just lost something. They are not the same team. And to be fair, Florida has sleptwalked through half this tournament anyway as well.
Yeah.
They weren't great against UConn, and they weren't great in their last game either against Tech. They had to come from the dead. They had a 90 6%. Tech had a 96% win probability with less than 3 minutes to go in the Elite Eight. So they haven't played tremendous basketball either. They've got it done.
So, and that's what I find myself wrestling with here, guys, is right. Florida hasn't put together a complete 40-minute game. And that's been the one gripe I've had against them throughout this tournament. Yet they keep getting deeper and deeper into the tournament and waiting longer and longer to wake up and play these games. To your point, Choppy, they go 38 and a half minutes against Texas Tech before they finally go, oh, yeah, we should probably wake up now. And they pull it off still. That's the thing. So, look, if Janai Broome is healthy enough to actually rebound a basketball, I don't think Florida can get away with any level of sleepwalking into this thing. I just don't. And even if he's not 100%, which I find it hard to believe he could be 100%, but even if he's not well enough to really give them significant advantage on the boards, I still don't like the idea of Florida deciding to putz around for 35, 36 minutes before they finally come around to the task. Yeah, maybe it's close, but I think there's a chance, again, given the level of health that Janai Broome shows on Saturday night, that if Florida wants to sleepwalk through 20 minutes again, John, that Auburn could put themselves in position to not worry about when the Gators finally flip the switch if it comes too late.
Yeah, I mean, I think the market is kind of telling you sort of all you need to know about this one. It opened 2.5. It kind of peaked to to 3 a little bit, and as soon as that 3 started showing up, got slapped right back. Right, these two teams are incredibly evenly matched. I mean, Auburn has shooting 1 through 10. I just think a lot of this is just we associate their slide, like that's what we think of, but if this was in January or February, I mean, I think like when this game was at Auburn, I don't remember exactly what it was, but I think it was like
Florida was Florida plus 11.
Yeah.
11.
Right. Yeah.
Dude,
so,
it's
again,
less than 2 months later. It's less
Right.
than 2 months later and on a neutral court.
Now Florida is better than the market thought / knew at that moment, and Florida ended up obviously winning that game outright. But are they like 13.5 points better than that? I mean, that's a lot, man. That's like that's a huge upgrade from January or February, whenever that was. I mean, that wasn't like November. And we didn't know anything about them. So, again, I think Florida's playing great basketball. They're obviously an elite team. They do everything well. There's really no positional weakness, but I think that's what you have to ask yourself is, was the market that wrong about Auburn and or Florida?
Yeah. You do have to ask that. It's just, the weird thing is, Florida's another team. There's been a handful of teams this year that have been like this. All their losses were in conference. It's odd, right? Like that's it. They lost to Missouri, Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky. The Kentucky loss was close on the road. Missouri was very, very close. Georgia was on the road, and Tennessee was on the road. They had already beat Tennessee by 30. Like their losses have all been to conference teams. Auburn lost to Duke. But so for the most part, they've all been to conference teams. It's been a nightmare stretch for both squads having to go through that gauntlet. Yeah, you're right. Is Florida 13 points different? No, but they're factoring in the data point of the 9-point road win. And they're probably given, how many points are they giving add on to that for winning by 9 on the road? Are they counting a 9-point road win as like a 13 or 14 point neutral site win? Like, is that what they're saying? I mean, it sounds it.
Yeah, and probably again the Broome factor is getting is getting rolled into this ball of wax as well. I think that's that's an important piece to it as well. If I had a lean, it would be Auburn plus the 2.5, but I don't think I'll jump on either side on this one unless we see something move. If it should get to 3, then I think I'd make a move on Auburn, but I don't think we'll get there before tip on Saturday night. The nightcap on Saturday: Houston, Duke by 5.5. again, the most interesting number in this one, as it has been all year with the Houston Cougars, the total, 136.5, John. If it's this is one of those games where I feel like you can bet the total and you're really betting an outcome. You know what I mean? If you believe Duke is going to win, but you don't want to lay 5.5, go ahead and take over. If you think Houston's going to win, well, hell, you got a 2-1 money line out there. You could do that. But you could also bet under 136.5, because I think if Houston's going to win this one, they're going to have to absolutely lock up the entire Blue Devils lineup from 1 through 7.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Even though Duke's defense, I think, doesn't get talked about enough, they score so much that, I mean, they held Alabama to 65 and that still got to 150. That kind of tells you everything there. So, yeah, I mean, the one thing I did after the Alabama game was I went to my sports book and I bet a lot of money on Duke to win it all. And obviously I was hoping that Tennessee pulled it off against Houston, because I thought that was a better matchup. But, I wasn't really nervous about either one of them, because Duke's firepower is just it's impossible to contain. I just cannot believe, I cannot fathom that these guys are freshmen. They are a unicorn. This team. Shire was knocking on the door last year. Obviously disappointing that he didn't get to a Final Four by losing to NC State, but this team has been the number 1 rated, net rated team for, most of the season. Malawach is like you just cannot get anything past him. It's like he has a radius where you don't even look at the rim. Cooper Flagg can give it to you in any number of ways. Conk-Nipple's super confident, can shoot the ball. I mean, everybody on this team is just they're impossible to stop. So, I mean, if you want to entertain yourself, and I have nothing but the most respect for Kelvin Sampson. If you want to entertain 5.5, I would say knock yourself out. But I'm not stepping in front of Duke. They look like the best team in America, and I don't think they're going to be stopped.
Dude, Duke has played, if my calculations are correct, and they're probably not because I'm really bad at math, but I'm looking at 4 games this year where they would not have hit the 136.5. 4 games?
Out of what, 37? Yeah, whatever it is.
Yeah, 37, 38. Like, the over is the play. I don't care who Houston is. Like, Duke's going to put up 80, 75, and then, I mean, like, even in the Houston-Tennessee game, those are 2 defensive first teams, and they still put up 129. And one of those teams scored 15 points in the first half.
Right.
Like,
right.
It's 136.5. That's a low number. That's a really, really low number. And Duke is so much better offensively than Tennessee is. So, yeah, I think the over is the player. I actually think that Duke minus 5.5 is probably the way to go as well. They are playing at a level that nobody else in the tournament is playing at right now. And, is this the best matchup? I don't know. I mean, Houston has got some guys that are 23 years old that are like men. They're playing against men. They really are. And would it surprise me if this wasn't let's go back to, when John was a little boy, 1997. Would this surprise me if this is Utah and Andre Miller against a high-flying Carolina team that was kids? And Andre Miller, just slowed that thing down, and Utah just kind of never let Carolina in it. Would it surprise me if that's what Houston did? No, it wouldn't surprise me, that one. I don't think it's likely, but I wouldn't be stunned. I mean, Houston's just grown men. They're grown men here.
Grown men with a grown-ass coach who's been just working absolute magic, too. John mentioned Kelvin Sampson earlier, and that's – if I'm going to make a bet on the late game on Saturday, it probably would be on the total, and I would probably just go under and say, hey, either one of these 2 teams can win a low-scoring game, I think, right? But I do anticipate, like you're talking about, Choppy, the possibility that Houston looks at it and says, all right, we're going to literally man up and see if you youngins can beat us. And look, they're incredibly talented. John just rattled off all the names. We don't need to go through them again, led by Cooper Flagg. They're incredibly talented. So it may be that game at the park where all the young kids decide to run the old men off the court and the old men get pissed. Yeah, sure, that's a possibility. But every once in a while, the old men, they slow it down, they grind it out, and they steal one from the young bucks and run them off the court. And I think if that happens, it's an under. I also think Duke can win on an under as well. So I would be under the 136.5 because I've been on Houston unders all year. And other than a little patch in late January, early February, they've hit a ton this season. Let's talk about that Cooper Flagg and the most outstanding player odds. Let's talk about the exact matchups maybe that we can bet on as well. And the coaching carousel, the portal already buzzing also as we get ready to wrap up the last edition of BetMGM U for the season, previewing the Final Four with you here on the BetMGM Network.